How did you come up with the album name, It's Okay If It Falls Apart?
So that's the name of one of the songs, which is kind of an obvious thing that you do. When you start to, there's recording the songs, and then you have all the songs, and now you have to like figure out, okay, well, what order do we want these to play in? So I think that was kind of the next stage of like, we sequenced the album. We're like, okay, this is really, let's open with hand clapping tambourines, and this is da 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 da. And all the while we started rehearsing to start it like with the idea of playing shows and all that kind of stuff. And then you have to do things like work on artwork, and you got to go like, oh man, like what are we gonna do? Like, what do we want this to look like? An artist friend of mine said, I was talking to an artist friend of mine who I wanted to do, Tom Cunahan, who I wanted to do the artwork for the record. And I said, what do we do? And he said, well, the only thing that's totally unique is your picture, your face. So you should have your picture. And I thought, oh, that's good. So he started on the artwork, and then we started kicking around like, okay, what do we want this to like? How do we want to present ourselves, and how do we want to look to? And we didn't really have, so we started doing some like graphic stuff and some ideas about like, okay, well, I guess we got to have all this like visual stuff with it, just because that's what you do these days, or that's what you have to do if you're going to release an album. You have to do artwork and make sure you spell everybody's name right and all that kind of stuff. So Sarah, I don't know what I was thinking, or what I think I had a couple of other working titles to the album, and then Sarah said, I feel like Sarah said like, we should name it It's Okay If It Falls Apart, kind of after one of the songs. And I was like, it kind of seemed like I was thinking of it in some way, like I had a lag of, I was like, kind of like, I think you're right, but I'm thinking of these things over here. And then it just kind of became like, yeah, that is it. Cause it is in the big scheme of things now, when you have the hindsight of it, it is really the thing. And now that we're releasing it, it's so weird because we're releasing it in an election year. It happened, we wrote the songs in an election year, and it seemed like at the time everything was falling apart. So It's Okay If It Falls Apart was like, that was the theme of how we got through the pandemic, which was kind of like, let's hike every day and let's write songs, because our whole business and our whole life and how we made a living was just wiped out. And we sort of had to figure out new ways to stay positive, and that kind of became the thing of like, if all this society that we have, if everything, this is what this pandemic was like, nobody knew what the next day was going to be like. So that still seems like how it is. And so It's Okay If It Falls Apart is really like the title. It's the title for the album. It's also like the philosophic core that is like, no matter how bad things get, we have each other, we have music, we can create things. We will always be able to figure out a way to, no matter what happens. I think that is something that we have to remind ourselves. We put so much faith in governments, and we put so much faith in like who this corrupt politician is going to be. I don't believe in any of that stuff. And so it seems to me like It's Okay If It Falls Apart puts music and puts our record into like where I think it should be, which is the philosophic thing that's above governments and all that stuff. Because it is okay if it falls apart, because we're going to be okay no matter what. You and me, the person looking at this.